the blue light from your device. So our eyes have these cells called myopsin cells. And essentially when the sun starts to set, that's when the hormone melatonin gets released from, gets triggered. And so the light from your devices, the blue light, is kind of a similar wavelength of the sun. So our bodies think that you're like staring at the sun essentially. And then there's the hyper arousal part of the brain where you're scrolling, you're looking at what's going on. Maybe you're checking email, maybe you're looking at like what your friends are up to. And that part is actually, when you're doing that, it's actually creating a busy mind, a racing mind. You're thinking, and that's a form of stress.
Welcome to Q's Health and Wellness Podcast, your source for living a healthier lifestyle and developing a better mind, body, and soul. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful fitness gurus, athletes, and individuals who are passionate about enhancing all aspects of life, we provide you with the tools to help you take your lifestyle to another level. And now your host, Quinn Mitchell.
Welcome to Q's Health and Wellness Podcast. This is your host, Quinn Mitchell. Today I have a very special guest, Devin Burke, as an international TEDx speaker, the best-selling author of The Sleep Advantage, the founder of Sleep Science Academy, and one of the top health and sleep coaches in the world. How are you doing today, my friend?
I am amazing. I'm excited to talk sleep with you today.
I appreciate you coming on the show. People that's not familiar with you, would you mind giving a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, so I actually started, I was actually going to become a doctor of physical therapy. And this was about 15 years ago. And then I realized it wasn't my passion, started to explore what was my passion. And I realized, helping people with their health was, but in more in a holistic way. Long story short, last 12 years, I've been studying all different types of health and wellness, let's call them technologies. And then it led me into sleep the last 5 years. And that was because somebody I was working with was having issues with their sleep. And so dove into the science of sleep, saw that there's not a lot of good solutions, saw there was a huge problem for people. And that led me to found Sleep Science Academy, and we help people all over the country sleep now.
Wow, that's amazing, man. So even with myself, like I said, we were just chatting before, that's something I'm currently struggling with myself. Just going to college, and the college athletes, they're just on a sleep cycle where maybe average 3 or 4 hours. And I even currently still struggle with that to this day, just getting a solid 8 hours of sleep. So how important would you say that is getting that solid foundation?
Oh my God, it's everything, especially when we're talking about physical performance. And I love to talk about this because if you look at the top, like for instance, let's just talk about the top athletes in the world in any sport, they all prioritize and protect sleep. Like LeBron James is a huge sleep promoter. Like he sleeps, I think, like 10 hours a night because he's training so hard. And when you're an athlete performing at a collegiate or professional level, you're abusing your body all day. And so sleep is the only time when your body and brain is recovering. And it's essential to be able to continue to perform. And there's a lot of studies that actually show that when you're not getting enough sleep, not only do your physical performance drops, but your mental performance drops. And so, it should be thought of. I like to think of it, it's like, as hard as you train, you should really be at least creating as much importance on sleep and recovery, rest and recovery, as your training itself. Wow. Like that's how important it is.
So why do you think that's not really taught as athletes, even in college? Because if I knew somebody like you and you were telling me this, I would have implemented this into my schedule. But a lot of trainers, throughout the country, I haven't really heard of the protection of sleep and the most importance of it. So why do you think that is?
Yeah, so that's changing now. Like people now, because there's more science around it. And like I said, like the top athletes in the world have sleep coaches. And now like professional teams are bringing people like myself to work with their teams, like NHL teams. But so I think it's to answer your question, it's two-part. First part is ignorance. People just, don't realize how important sleep is. And then the second part of that is we didn't have enough science around it. So now there's a lot more science around, hey, this is actually what happens when we sleep. This is how important it actually is. And so with that science, now, the education is starting to get caught up. And then after people are educated, then they can change and make better decisions. And so I think in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see like even college teams having sleep coaches, having sleep programs, because the teams that do start to implement that are going to be the teams that are winning.
That's amazing, man. So do you think there's one like common area that a lot of people are struggling with when it comes to sleep, as far as lacking?
Yeah. So the first thing is, a lot of people don't prioritize or protect it because they think it's a waste of time. So like in our culture, everyone's like hustle, grind, work, burn the midnight oil. And it's almost like a machismo thing. Like, I only need 3-4 hours of sleep, I'm good. But really in reality, that's not true. Like, so it's a cultural thing that needs to shift. Like, we need to realize that sleep is, some of the most important hours you possibly could spend in your day so that you can show up and make good decisions and have good health, because it affects every aspect of your health and life, to be honest. And I can go into more detail about that. But it's one of the things that the biggest thing that really keeps people from sleep is actually, it's number one, it's not prioritizing it because they don't know how valuable it is. And then it's actually stress. So like technology, like, social media, email, like most people take, they're working late. And so they sacrifice these really critical hours of their sleep because, they're working or they're on social media, and that's creating hyperarousal in the brain. That's a form of stress, which then leads to the body not being able to do what it knows how to do, which is sleep.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because I know it's me personally. When I'm on like settling down my day, I go on my phone 10-11 o'clock at night, and then it literally takes me like an hour just for my body just to actually fall asleep, because it's like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's from my cell phone or what do you think that is when it comes to that?
It's twofold. So it's the blue light from your device. So our eyes have these cells called myopsin cells, and essentially when the sun starts to set, that's when the hormone melatonin gets released from, gets triggered. And so the light from your devices, the blue light, is kind of a similar wavelength of the sun. So our bodies think that you're like staring at the sun essentially. And then there's the hyperarousal part of the brain where you're scrolling, you're looking at what's going on. Maybe you're checking email, maybe you're looking at like what your friends are up to. And that part is actually, when you're doing that, it's actually creating a busy mind, a racing mind. You're thinking, and that's a form of stress.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. So there's the physical aspect of it, and then there's the mental aspect of it. One strategy I love to share, and we'll get right into the strategies here. It's 3-2-1 sleep. 3 hours before bed, no food. The reason for that is because the first half of the night is when you get most of the deep sleep, the delta sleep. That's the body's recovery. That's when hormones like growth hormone, testosterone, that's when your body is literally building muscle, is in that first quarter of the night. And if you eat too close to bedtime, you disrupt that process. 2 hours before bed, no work. The reason for that is because when we're working, we're thinking, our brains are going off. That's hyperarousal. That's a form of stress. So we want to stop working. 1 hour before bed, no technology, implement a bedtime routine. And that could be like stretching, meditating, hot bath, making love to your partner, something boring, maybe playing music, maybe listening to some, soft music, something that doesn't involve technology. If everyone listened to this, all the athletes that listen to this, if they just did 3-2-1 sleep, I guarantee you their performance would exponentially get better.
Wow.
Guaranteed. Do it for a month and then send me an email. And let me know how game-changing that was for you. Really, I'm like, yeah.
And I definitely would. And now with the cell phone, does that also partake into people leaving the TV on as well? Does that have that same effect per se?
So here's the thing about the TV. So it does. So the content that you consume before bed is also important to talk about. So like if you're watching like, murder mysteries and you're watching the news and like things that are like, getting your adrenaline going, not good content. If you're watching like a documentary or you're watching something more educational, that's better content. But it's not ideal to fall asleep with the TV on. Most people do it because, watching TV, it's like relaxing. It's relaxing to the body, but again, it's kind of like your brain is still going and it's not ideal. You're getting the light, like get the TV out of your bed and bedroom. The bed and bedroom is meant for two things: making love to your partner and sleeping. That's it. Not watching TV.
I'm glad you brought that up. And one thing I wanted to ask you too, because I was doing some research on it, and I came across one of your YouTube videos. And it's crazy because it actually happened to me. So usually I wake up like on Wednesdays and Fridays and go play basketball like 5 a.m. So I wake up like around 4:30. And then when I usually go to sleep, it was like around 12, 1 o'clock. But I found myself thinking about like, man, I gotta wake up in 2 hours. So while I'm sleeping, I'm not really sleeping. It's just all I'm doing is thinking about waking up in 2 hours. So it's like I never really actually get to sleep. But I know you had touched on that a little bit. Would you mind just sharing what you had said about that?
Oh yeah. So that's a big issue for people. So there's two systems that control sleep pressure and circadian rhythm. And so when our brains, we can't force or control sleep. Anything that's going to create anxiety in the mind is going to be detrimental to our sleep. So sometimes people work during their sleep, and or they're anxious about like, oh, I have to wake up and, or I have to get to sleep because I have to wake up in 2 hours. And so that is creating a pressure, and not a good type of pressure that's actually going to keep you from falling asleep and getting into those deeper stages of sleep. So it's kind of paradoxical. It like sleep's the one thing that the harder you try at, actually the worse you can get at, because it's not something you can control. Quinn, it's like your heart beats. You don't have to think about that. You take a breath. You don't think about that. No. Sleep's the same thing. And the more you think about it, and the more you try to control it or force or will yourself to sleep, actually the worse you sleep, because that's a form of stress.
I'm glad you brought that, because like I said, that's something that I literally struggle with myself, because I will think about, hey, I got to do this at 7, so let me get up at 5. I look at the time, it's like 2. So during the whole time, it's like I literally just, I guess in the first stage of sleep, because it's no deep sleep, because literally when I wake up, I still feel like I haven't slept. It literally, I just feel like I just closed my eyes for 2 hours and then just got up.
Yeah, it's actually, there's a word for it in psychology. It's called anticipatory anxiety. And so it's like, for instance, a lot of people have this before they have like a flight. They have to catch a flight, or if they know they have to get up earlier than usual to like play basketball or whatever it is. There's like this part of the brain that's like, oh, like, I have to get up. I don't want to miss this. I don't want to sleep in. It's sort of like this anticipatory anxiety that happens that then actually keeps the body from falling into those deeper stages of sleep. So, it's important to really understand that, for sure.
Now, would you mind just digging in just a little bit about the deeper stages of sleep? Because I'm not really familiar with them. So would you mind just giving the listeners just a little background?
Yeah. So real simple, just so everyone can understand it without getting too technical here. Every 90 minutes, we go through a full sleep cycle. There's two different types of sleep. There's REM sleep, or rapid eye movement, which is dream sleep, and non-REM sleep. And so there's also stages of sleep, stages 1 through 4. So the first two stages, stages 1 and 2, are considered light sleep. Stages 3 and 4 are considered deep sleep, or delta sleep. Each stage of sleep is associated with a certain brain frequency or brain pattern. So every 90 minutes, we're going through a sleep cycle. And within that cycle, we're going through stages 1 through 4, and then we're shifting into REM sleep. So when we're talking about quality of sleep, we're talking about stages 3 and 4 and REM sleep, because that's when stages 3 and 4, that's like our body repairs. That's when hormones are being released, like growth hormone, testosterone. That's when like you're literally, you're burning fat, you're building muscle. And then when we shift to REM sleep, that's when we're dreaming. That's when we're working out emotional trauma of the day. That's when short-term memory is getting shuttled to long-term storage. There's a lot of studies that show it's a link to learning. So if you're not getting enough REM sleep, you're not going to have as good of a memory. So when we're talking about sleep quality, we want to optimize your deep sleep, stages 3 and 4, and your REM sleep. And ideally, the percentage should be 20% of your total sleep time you want to be in deep sleep, and about 20 to 25% of your total sleep time you want to be in REM sleep.
Wow. Oh, that's interesting, man. So would you consider, like, when you take quote unquote naps, where would you be in those deep states? Because for me, I don't really think that I'm in that deeper stage of sleep when I take a nap. It's just something like, let me get an hour real quick, and then I just wake up and continue on with my day.
Yeah, so the perfect nap time is really 20 minutes because you don't want to get into deeper stages of sleep. And usually after, like if you were asleep for an hour, you're getting close to that 90-minute cycle, a full sleep cycle. And if you wake up, like, have you ever taken a nap and you woke up and you were more tired than when you went to sleep?
Exactly.
So the reason for that is because your body dropped into a deeper stage of sleep and then you woke up. So if you just take a 20-minute nap, you don't want to really get into the deeper stages when you're napping. You just 20 minutes, like set your alarm for 20 minutes. And then once that alarm gets off, once you're asleep for 20 minutes and that alarm goes off, you want to then get up. Because if you get to those deeper stages, you're going to wake up and you're going to feel more tired and groggy than when you went to sleep.
So is this something that you would recommend for people that's struggling with? I know you have put like a nightly routine in there, but is this something else that you could recommend for people that's really struggling with actually not thinking about the sleep? Because for me, if I take a nap, I'm thinking about the 20 minutes. I'd be like, damn, it's not even enough for me. So is this something that you could recommend?
Yeah. So first and foremost, if you're having trouble sleeping at night, don't take a nap. And the reason for that is because it decreases what's called sleep pressure. And I'll get a little sciencey here, but so there's adenosine is a chemical that builds up in our mind and bodies that creates sleepiness. And when you nap, you're essentially reducing adenosine so that sleep pressure drops. So if you have trouble sleeping at night, don't nap. If you don't have trouble sleeping at night and you feel tired in the afternoon, napping once in a while, awesome strategy. First and foremost. The other thing is, if you find yourself worrying about sleep, then that's a challenge. So if you're starting to get anxious about your sleep, that is a form of insomnia, and you're going to want to get professional help to address that. But essentially, the less you think about sleep, the better you actually will sleep. So if you find that you're starting to get anxious about it, just catch your mind going there and take a deep breath and let it go, or let the thought come in and just let it go through your mind, right? You don't want, so anything you can do that'll keep your body in a parasympathetic, which is like the rest and digest nervous system response, the relaxation response, is going to be good for your sleep. So, meditation is a fantastic tool because it drops you out of your mind and into your body, and it can drop you out of that stress state back into the rest state. And that's, your body needs to be in a rested state in order for sleep to happen.
Got you. And like I said, I'm glad that you brought that up. And is there something else? Because I know on your YouTube channel as well, and I'm definitely going to include this on the show notes for people to have access to it. I know you spoke about staying hydrated during the day instead of drinking water at night. Because for me, I literally find myself drinking a lot of water before bed, and then I wake up at 3 a.m. and it's like I gotta go to the bathroom. So then my whole sleep is disrupted. So is there any tips that you recommend on that?
Absolutely. So you want to make sure you load your hydration earlier on in the day and taper it off towards the end of the night. So, we lose a liter of water. I'm going to say that again, a liter of water every night.
Wow.
And that's through respiration and sweat. So the first thing you do when you wake up is you drink, as if you can drink a liter of water, some people can, do it. That's the first thing you do. And that pretty much you're already starting from a dehydrated state. So you're going to drink that liter of water, and then throughout the day, just keep drinking. And then as you start to go into the evening, taper off, don't drink as much, because you don't want to have to be, waking up in the middle of the night and having to use the restroom, because then your mind might start going. Next thing you know, you're tossing and turning, and then the sun's coming up and you're not feeling rested, right?
Definitely. And is there something that you recommend for college athletes that struggle, or they don't have the proper? I mean, because I'm not sure if you went to school. When I was in college, like the college beds were horrible. So actually getting quality sleep was something that I never really had. So is this something that you would recommend to them?
Yeah. So the best investment you can make for your health is a good mattress. Because think about it, you're sleeping on your mattress a third of your life, and so upgrade your bed. Like if a lot of athletes spend a lot of money on Air Jordans, and they're spending like maybe thousands of dollars on like
Mm-hmm.
shoes and like, chains and stuff like that. Like, no, like go for maybe even supplements, college athlete, supplements,
Mm-hmm.
shoes, and like clothes, right? That's like what a
Mm-hmm.
college athlete usually invests money in. Take some of that money, put it into your bed, invest in a really good bed. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's so important. It'll make such a difference in your performance. And then that can up level you to maybe even make it to, professional level, or, just have a better mind to absorb the things you're learning to have a better career.
Mm. And then one thing I wanted to ask you as well, as far as I know that a lot of people, they take like CBD oils to help them sleep better or things like that. Is there something that you recommend, or they take like sleeping like melatonin to help them
Yeah.
sleep? So is there something that you could recommend that basically could ease them off of that rather than, or is that something that you recommend that them taking that would help them?
Yeah. So supplements should be supplemental to behavioral and psychological change when we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
sleep, because they make the least impact, but there is a time and a place for them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of melatonin because it's a hormone. And actually, there's a meta-analysis that shows that it actually doesn't really help with sleep. It's more placebo.
Mm-hmm.
So CBD, certain, high quality CBD products can be helpful, but you don't want to rely on anything to sleep. Like if you feel like you need to take melatonin or CBD to sleep, there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So in my book, The Sleep Advantage, I have an entire chapter on sleep supplementation and like how to, like, which ones are best depending on what your sleep challenge is, or if you just want to sort of optimize your sleep. Maybe you're somebody that just wants to improve the quality of your sleep, because there's so many things out there like kava kava, L-theanine, 5-HTP. There's, like you said, CBD, which I'm actually a fan of. I think can be helpful. There's
Mm-hmm.
melatonin, there's valerian root, there's hops, there's so many different sort of supplements and sort of ingredients, GABA. So you can spend a lot of time and money and energy trying to find like the perfect sleep supplement. At the end of the day, that's going to be it's going to have a much it's going to have a little impact when, if you
Mm-hmm.
followed like the 3-2-1 sleep, or you upgraded your mattress, or you just stop using technology like so close to bedtime. Those things would actually make way big of a difference than if you were just, taking some supplements.
Like I said, I'm glad that you even brought that up. And one thing I want to ask you as well, I'm glad you're giving all this advice, this great advice, is actually diving into insomnia, because a lot of people, they may not know that they have it, but it's something that they do every day. So would you mind just diving into that like scientifically, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So great. Thank you for bringing this up, because a lot of people, don't realize they have insomnia. So first and foremost,
Mm-hmm.
insomnia is simply people that have issues getting or staying asleep. And there's a couple of different types. So there's transient insomnia, which most people experience for a couple of days. Like, let's say you're traveling time zones, or maybe like lost a loved one or something like that, and you're pretty
Mm-hmm.
stressed from that, and there's a couple of nights you don't sleep, but then your sleep kind of balances out. That's called
Mm-hmm.
transient insomnia. Then there's
Mm-hmm.
acute insomnia, which is like the next level, where it happens for a couple of weeks. And then there's chronic insomnia, which is defined as having issues getting or staying asleep more than 3 nights a week for longer than 3 months. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're someone who has issue either falling or staying asleep, and those are two different types of insomnia, called onset insomnia, which is trouble falling asleep, and
Mm-hmm.
maintenance insomnia, which is trouble staying asleep, for more than 3 nights a week, and it's impacting your day for longer than 3 months, that's actually classified as having chronic insomnia.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people that have chronic insomnia that just don't even know they
Don't
have it.
know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're like, oh, like I I don't know, I just don't sleep well, and they don't ever really even know that they're having this. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a big problem for people, and so it's, if you really understand how important sleep is, then you want to make sure that you take the steps to solve insomnia if you have it.
And like I said, Devin, I appreciate you just coming on the show and just giving all this great advice. Because, like I said, for me, I lost my mom last year, so it was
Mm,
like it was in a state where I wasn't sleeping at all. And then, like I said, I'm training every day at 5 a.m. So now I'm just going to sleep at 2. So I'm in this constant state of just struggling, just try to get to sleep. And then when I do get to sleep, I'm always thinking about it. So I'm sure my listeners that listen to this show are going to really relate to this information, because for me personally, it's something that I struggle with. And even being in college and high school, I just never like I love to sleep, but the hardest thing is getting to sleep and actually
Yeah.
not thinking about it, because I'm always on my phone all the time.
Yeah. So I would say, if you were one of our clients at Sleep Science Academy, it's important to, we actually address the underlying root causes, which oftentimes people don't realize. It's often, a lot of times it is mental, emotional. And we most people just try to address it like physically, like maybe taking supplements or changing their bed, upgrading their bed, which that addresses quality of sleep issues, but it doesn't address insomnia. And like, so usually people have insomnia when there's a stressful event. Like for you, you lost your mom, right? That's a stressful event.
Yeah.
That's heavy stuff. So like, if you don't have the proper tools or support to process that and to like breathe and sort of, deal with that, that's going to then create insomnia. That's going to then create other dis-ease. So mental health and sleep are totally related. And a lot of people just don't ever, like mental health is really stigmatized in America. I think it's getting destigmatized. Like people are now being open to like seeing counselors or therapists or coaches to like work through difficult things. Like we all need support. Like I have a therapist, and I'm happy I do. It's like, we all need support. So, it's important that if you're listening to this and you don't have support, be open to getting support, whether it doesn't have to be from a professional, but ideally it would be. But having somebody to work through like challenging situations, like things that create stress in your mind is so helpful. Because really at the end of the day, like sleep, for instance, we always say this in our academy, sleep is a result. And if you're not sleeping great, it's just telling you that something in your mind or body is out of balance. And so what we do when we work with clients is look at, well, what's out of balance? Is it how you're thinking? Is it what you're doing? Is it usually it's both? And then how do we change your habits and also your mindset and give you the tools so that we can get that body back into balance so that it can do what it knows how to do, which is sleep.
Like I said, I'm glad you brought that up. And one last thing I want to say before I let you go is, I know for me personally, when I was in college, it's something I did struggle with. So would you say that, I know you had mentioned that sleep is an important part of recovery, but does it also does it affect your injuries as well, would you say?
Oh my, hell yeah, it affects you. So listen to this. This is crazy. When I learned this, your pain perception actually goes up 20% when you're not. Yeah. So not only do you not recover from injuries, it takes much longer to recover from injuries because it's in that stage 3 and 4 when the body is actually repairing the damage done, the inflammation of an injury is in that deep sleep stage. But the next day, your perception of that injury is going to feel worse by 20%. So now let's say you have like an ankle sprain or something like that. If you're not sleeping, that ankle's not going to be repairing as fast as it could. And then it's going to feel 20% more painful because so it's wild. Yeah.
It's crazy that you said it, because my senior year I struggled with a groin injury, and it was literally all season long and I was just trying to play through it because it was my senior year. So when I first heard it, I said, okay, but my sleep schedule was I was maybe getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep at night. So it was literally just a nagging injury that just happened all throughout the season. But like I said, when you're saying this 20%, I can relate to that, because it'd be some days, like when I first heard it, it was okay. But then the next day I didn't really get any sleep because I started just stressing. I was thinking about, damn, I'm hurt now. Like, how's this going to affect my play? Right. The next day it was like 20 times worse. I'm like, what the hell? So I could definitely relate to that.
For sure. It's interesting how that happens. And it's kind of like, I think part of it is the intelligence of the body trying to just tell you like, hey, like you need to rest. Now, here is really important thing I want to bring up, Quinn, because we're talking about all the importance of sleep and how powerful it is. And sometimes what in people's minds, then what they do is they put it on what's called a pedestal. And this is dangerous. It deserves to be on a pedestal, but if you put sleep on a pedestal, then it can create pressure for like, oh my God, if I'm not sleeping, I'm not recovering and I'm not gonna, and then that is a form of stress, which then
so you're
keeps you
thinking
from
about
sleep.
it.
So it's a pattern. So again, a lot of, and this is why one of the reasons I'm so passionate and about helping people with their sleep, because a lot of these, they're like very subtle, like ninja things that happen in the mind that can keep you from sleep. But when you see them clearly and you understand how to think about them in a different way, and you have some techniques and tools and support to do that, it just totally changes the game. So this is a pattern that a lot of people fall into. It's they put it on a pedestal. They're like, oh my God, I need sleep. It's, if I'm not sleeping, and then that's the very thinking that keeps them from sleep.
I'm glad you brought that up. And like, I want to ask you personally, when you started to sleep those 8 to 10 hours, did you have to like sacrifice certain relationships or friendships? Because I know for me, girls that spend 10 hours on or 2-3 hours on FaceTime with you, just want to talk your ear off, and it's like, I gotta go to sleep, but they don't get that. So well, for you personally, is that something that you had to like take into consideration to your family and friends, say, hey, I'm sleeping at this time, don't text my phone, don't call me, and you had to put your foot down with that?
Yeah, you do. You have to draw boundaries for sure. And it can be challenging when you're, depending on what stage of life you're in. But drawing boundaries is really important. And it really, Quinn, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is priorities. So communication, drawing boundaries and clear communication, and like just telling people, hey, listen, you're not gonna be able to reach me after 11 o'clock because I'm going to be in bed sleeping, because I need to wake up and feel good. And just drawing that boundary and clearly communicating to people about it. And here's the thing, you don't want to be too rigid with it. You got to live life. But it is important if sleep, if you see sleep as valuable, and hopefully after this, you listen to this, you do, then you have to put boundaries in place, or else nothing will change.
And I know you work with some of the most successful people in the world. So do you see them having that same pattern where when they come to you like, hey, I'm having trouble with this, do they actually do that same thing when they set aside personal time for sleep for them as well?
They do. Yeah. And we do work with like really extremely successful people. We also work with grandmas and moms. And so it's not just, we don't just work with like these ultra humans. We work with everyday people that are just, living their lives and having issues with sleep. But it's for sure, there's something called sleep procrastination, where people procrastinate sleep because they see it as a waste of time. Or there's also something where people are so busy during the day that the only time they have for themselves is at night. And then they want to do things for themselves at night. Right. And then that's taken away from their sleep. So everyone is unique, but most people's sleep challenges are not unique. And it's important to understand that. So like if you're having issues either getting or staying asleep, that's not unique. You're unique. Your situation, your family, your hopes, your dreams, your age, your physical abilities, that's unique, but your sleep challenges are not.
Got you. And I want you to just talk about your book a little bit, the Sleep Advantage. So what made you want to come out with the book? And was there any challenges that you've seen like writing it while promoting that process?
Yeah. So what inspired me to write that book is a lot of the sleep books that I was reading when I was really diving into researching sleep science and just sleep in general were very like scientific. They were kind of hard to read. Some of them were really, they had a lot of great information and studies and like why it's sleep so important. But I didn't I didn't find anything that was really like, hey, how do you improve it? Like, how do you improve it in like simple language? Like, give me like, just tell me what to do, like without all this other like scientific language and stuff. So I was like, let me write a book that is a step-by-step guide to better sleep. So that's really what I set out to do is just keep it simple, give people what they need, give them, a little bit of science, but a lot of just techniques and tools to improve it. And it was, for me, writing the book, I just wrote a little bit every day. And after about a year, the book was finished. And it's not, it's not like a 300-page book. I think it's like 160 pages or something like that. But it's like anything, like you just do a little bit every day, and then the next thing you know, it's done. And so, there were days that I didn't feel like writing, and there was but you know, I was more committed to that because whenever I had those days, I thought, well, if I don't finish this book, there's going to be people that are going to be not have this information, and this information can really help people. So I made it more about others than myself. And then I would just get going and start to write. So
Gotcha. Now that's awesome, man. And I also want you to talk about the Sleep Science Academy that you have. So what made you start that? And how's let's say, could somebody just come to you and say, hey, I want to join your academy? What would be the process for that?
yeah, so I started it out of a need. And so how we work with clients at Sleep Science Academy is essentially I developed a systematic approach, a holistic approach based in science, pairing technology, coaching, and education that helps people understand how to go from not sleeping to sleeping. And we start in the mind. We look at the mental barriers that keep people from sleeping. So we do a lot of psychology to help people shift their mindsets. Once we get the mind out of the way of the body, then we start to address the body. We help upgrade the sleep system, we call it, increase sleep pressure, reset the circadian clock, which is the clock that controls our entire bodies. And then the last stage is we look at sleep environment. So it's mind, body, environment in that order, with coaching, both one-on-one coaching and group coaching, using technology. So we're doing sleep tracking. And then there's a whole education system that people go through where we give them the step-by-step plan to work through the mind, the body, and the environment. And it takes place over the course of 8 weeks, because it's not a quick fix. It's not like, hey, it's not something that you're just going to like in 1 week, boom, like it's solved. It takes time, it takes energy, but we hear all the time from our clients, and we have a ton of testimonials from clients that literally have said, I've tried everything. I've tried therapy and acupuncture and supplements and medication. Nothing has worked. And then after they go through our system, not only are they sleeping better, but their lives are better, because these tools you can use for your life as well.
And that's awesome, man. Like I said, I admire everything you're doing, because somebody like myself, I've learned so much. I'm gonna rewatch this myself and just write down some notes. Because for me personally, you don't hear this information everywhere. And then a lot of the information that's out there, like you said, it's more of a they don't get straight to the point. It's more they just write everything, and then they want you to figure out the answers instead of you give them the answers on how to improve their sleep, which is something I like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we're all busy, so it's like, let's just like give me the good stuff, right? And I always say, like, I'm a big believer in investing in yourself. Over the years, I've invested, I can't even tell you how much I've invested in my education and myself, because I know when you invest in experts, it saves you time, and that saves you money. Because it's like people like myself, for instance, like this is what I do all day long: study sleep, read sleep books. And like, you don't have time, or maybe you don't even want to do that. So it's like, having, shortcuts, when you invest in people that sort of invest their energy and time in one topic, it just helps you, you just get the good stuff and saves you a lot of time. And so that's kind of where we'll leave it.
Right. Nah, that's definitely awesome. And then before I let you guys want to know, well, what is a typical day like for you?
So I'll tell you, this morning, woke up, I had to drank a big thing of water. Then I meditate every day for 20 minutes in the morning. It's part of my practice it's been for a number of years. And then I kiss my wife goodbye, and I jump in a 45-degree cold bath for about 5 minutes, take a hot shower, and then I start my day. So that's pretty consistent. I don't do the cold bath every day, probably like 3-4 days a week after like a hard training session. But that's my meditation is consistent. That's 20 minutes in the morning, hydration. And then like an hour after I'm up, then I might have like some green tea, or sometimes I'll have a coffee, and then I'm just cracking at it all day.
Hey, that's awesome. And the last thing I want to ask you before I let you go, something I ask all my guests is, what is something that you're most grateful for?
Oh man, I'm really grateful for all the people that have supported me along the way to allow me to do the work that I'm doing now for people. There's been so many people that have helped me that have believed in me, that have, just been of service to me, to be able
Hmm.
to help me then be of service to other people. And I'm super grateful for that. So, it's a blessing.
That's awesome, man. Like I said, I appreciate you coming on the show and giving all this great advice. Because, like I said, it's something that I personally struggle with, and I know a lot of listeners that's going to listen to this, they'll be very beneficial to them as well. So I really do appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great. Great to connect with you, and yeah, let's get more people sleeping.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Q's Health and Wellness Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe or to leave us a review on iTunes or the listening platform of your choice. Also, please check us out at QuinnMitchellII.com, as well as find us on Instagram for more useful content and resources.